Welcome to the Longevity Protocol with Dr. Cristina Bosch and Dr. John A. Robinson. We'll be your guides to uncovering the secrets to optimal health, better sex, and happiness. From debunking aging myths to exploring the science behind what it means to live the Longevity Protocol, we'll dive into a wide range of topics. So, get ready for an exhilarating journey in what it means to live well and feel your very best at any age. How not to lose yourself in your relationship when you're always together as partners, and what are your non-negotiables.
Okay.
So how not to lose yourself in your relationship. That's the name of this episode. And I want to be really clear. We have, which by the way, if Dr. McMorrow, if you are listening, this was something that she had brought up. This is one of our new associates, a fantastic young doctor, enthusiastic, just passionate doctor. And she had this idea. No, she's young, as many of, it seems like a lot of people around us now seem to be younger and younger.
I know. It's like me and the other young people.
Right. And then I'm the old one. Well, at least from this perspective, I don't usually feel that way.
They
but from
are
the perspective,
much younger than us. Yes. Okay.
But certainly, yeah, from their perspectives, a lot of times I think that's where we tend to see like, wow, like the either their youth or the difference in the generations.
Yeah.
But anyway,
she thought it was a good topic that she'd like to hear our perspective on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so
the question
Marina,
is,
this one's for you.
How not to lose yourself in your relationship.
So, and how do you maintain your personal identity? I think that was
interesting.
That's one thing. Yeah, I do think that particular question is rather interesting. Are we needing? Is it about identity? I know the term, the concept of identity is something that's really, really popular. And that not only having an identity, defining what that is, maintaining
or it defining you.
Yeah, there you go. Even better. That the identity defines you.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that what's important in a relationship? Is that what was important for our relationship as an example?
Mm-hmm. I mean, when someone says to me, how do you not lose yourself in a relationship? I want to reply, why wouldn't I lose myself? Why wouldn't I want to lose myself in a relationship? Like, I want to lose myself in a relationship.
But why? Why would that be important for you? I mean, that sounds very romantic.
Well, that's how I mean it.
Well, of course, but what about that? Why would you say that? What about you, or what about, because you're an extremely intelligent, well thought out person with a fantastic background and how you were brought up. Why just what sounds to be almost whimsically letting yourself go? Why? Where's the benefit of that?
Because there's benefit in whimsical letting go. I mean, the idea of swooning, the idea that, I mean, come on, that never went out of style for a reason, because
they've tried to make that go out of style. I don't know about that.
I don't know who they is, but I clearly don't listen to that.
We always say this sort of new wave of feminism.
Right,
the they.
Here's my advice. Lose yourself in a relationship. No, I take that back. Edit, rewind. Choose a relationship well. Once you have chosen a partner well, lose yourself. In fact, get lost together. Go roaming and running and having a wonderful time and forgetting yourselves while you spend countless hours in your apartment alone, eating and kissing and talking and eating and kissing and talking. And, start there. Like, if that's not happening at the beginning of your relationship, then perhaps, from my perspective, that's not the relationship for me. Case in point, right?
I think so.
But I guess I do want to honor the question. The question is, how do you maintain your sense of self? Which I think is really the main point. And what you and I talk a lot about is this idea of growing together while growing as individuals. So perhaps they're just not asking the right question because they don't really even understand what they want to know.
Right. Well, why are they asking that question in the first
Mhm.
place? And I believe that, and we were talking about this earlier this morning, is it the generation? Is it a Gen Z-ish, maybe millennial type of thing? Or is this, or which is now almost Gen Z and millennial, or is it just a youthful thing that when you're young, all you have is your own sense of self, or what you're trying to develop as a sense of self. So, and then you sort of like that, you like your lifestyle, what you're doing, you don't want to give that up. So is that a
I don't
generational
think
thing or just an
so.
age
I don't
thing?
think it's just a generational or age thing because people who go through major lifestyle changes like divorce, let's say later on in life, um, or you're in your late 40s, you're in your early 50s, you're in your early 60s, and you divorce, then you're going through that sense of exploring who you are.
Well, because you have to at that point, because there is no more, as we always say, us.
I know,
There's
but
you, there's me, and then there's us.
I think a lot of times those those failures are brought about because of that sense of, I don't have my
Yeah,
own self in the
right.
relationship.
Exactly.
And I really don't mean to be a hypocrite because I also talk about the importance of not finding yourself, like for women, not finding yourself as an empty nester woman who suddenly has no purpose. So I do get it. I just think that both things happen at the same time. Like when you are in a relationship, you should have moments of feeling fabulously lost. It should be a tempest of desire and of, F it moments, like lots of, is this a practical decision? No, F it. Let's drive to the beach,
Yeah, I want to talk about some more practical things regarding all
Because
of that.
you don't like those F it moments.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I think it depends on what F we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind giving in for sure.
And you get lost in
I
relation.
have gotten lost in you. This
That's
is
what we're
true.
talking about. Me,
I
there's
mean,
only me.
well, of course. But I mean, yeah, when I think about early on in our relationship, it was absolutely
Uh-huh.
a deep well of intensity of losing ourselves. But that was because I think we felt safe
Right.
with one another. But I wanted to say this real quick. I think that it's important for men to be with a woman who wants to be on your team. Men are, I think, they should be driven on their own purpose, and then they talk with a woman who's into that purpose and gets it, and there's a mutuality of agreement towards that purpose, and then it isn't his purpose anymore; it becomes their purpose.
Right.
And that's certainly what it was with us. I mean, we met, in school and already had this association with the passion for the medicine and all of those
Right.
things, and
The
just
values
learning
there.
and just all that sort of intellectual stuff that we love together, and just being passionate about life. So that was easy, that part in the beginning. But as we've evolved, I've certainly become very driven in purpose, and you're like my biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, guys, I can't stress it enough. Find a woman who is your biggest fan and is there for that sense of, purpose of that drive.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
And also that, because the same is true for the female, it's just you want the purposes to be compatible. I think when you have, maybe this is what happens in thespian and Hollywood relationships. If both people need to be the star at all times and it's different shows, then perhaps that's why they have a hard time succeeding. Like
Mhm.
your purpose is in line with my purpose. And these are things that we well established at the beginning. And every time there's a turn in the direction of our life path, we make sure we realign our goals. We make sure we realign our purposes so that we're taking those turns together. And sometimes there's a little bit of a stretching moment, like, okay, there's two opportunities that are coming up. They're not on the same path, but we can maintain parallel goals. And we still have very strong tethers, whether it's our business or our children or our romantic life, right? So I think this idea of maintaining your identity is really about recognizing that one's identity when they're 20, I've said this before, in one of our podcasts, your identity when you're 20 is not your identity when you're 30, 40, 50, 60. Your core values are there. So if you're choosing core value compatibility, then the details of where you are in your life become less important because you're always going to have guiding principles, and they're going to change anyway.
Exactly. I think part of maybe why I was just very intrigued by her question and wondering. So then I'm always thinking, why that question? Why is that important to her? Again, as a young woman who's perhaps looking towards the permanency of a relationship.
Yeah, as a professional, especially.
Yes. There is a British theorist, Anthony Giddens, and he argues that we are witnessing a transformation of intimacy. There's an American family scholar, Andrew Cherlin. He suggests that we're witnessing a deinstitutionalization of marriage. So basically what they're saying is that there's this change in that we're not necessarily looking, I say maybe at large. I don't think this applies to us. I don't think this applies to many people, but let's say still a lot of people are starting to look at, instead of marriage for the sake of the marriage, the institution of marriage, they're feeling it's failing as an institution,
or has no value.
It has no value because they're viewing it as failing. There's divorce rates and all of that. So, well, okay, marriage in and of itself is not important. And marriage has always had a biblical, spiritual relationship to it, of course. Right. But there's, okay, that's failing. So it needs to be now about the relationship for the sake of the relationship. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work.
Right. So basically the relationship until it no longer serves you.
Until it no longer serves.
Which I think is still compatible with the original idea of marriage, with one extremely important exception. The relationship no longer serves you when you stop serving the relationship. So if you are valuing the unity of marriage, then you will serve it. You will serve it. You will cultivate it. You will feed it. You will service it. I said serve. You will basically nurture it. You will ensure its survival.
Right. But see, I think there's too much you there. I will do this. I will figure this out. And again, so this is probably somewhat biblical and maybe perhaps our approach, but whether it's Judeo-Christian biblical approach or it's just any kind of spiritual approach, if you believe you're entering into a union that doesn't have God at the top of that, then because God, we're taking God out of everything. So we're left with the me. I will figure it out. We will figure it out. And then if we can't, we can't, because it's taking away God as priority within the marriage.
I think when I say you, and I'm talking about.
Well, do you see what I'm saying about that in terms of the God side of it? I mean, I believe it's just taking away from the focus on the entity that's going to help you keep a marriage where it needs to be, because there's a reference point back to something that is greater than yourself, that's greater even the union. And well, it's maybe not greater than the union, but it's greater than yourself. Certainly your ability to make it all work.
And I guess I'm inviting people, you, to see you as the unity. And the unity, if we're talking about the sanctity of marriage, assumes God. So I understand what you're saying. You're trying to say, okay, the pronoun you is not the correct pronoun because it sounds like it's an individual. And what I'm saying is really when you're in a relationship, the you is the union, and the union implies a greater good.
But it should, and it just doesn't always. This is what I'm saying, because we keep coming back to the word of identity. I got to hold on to my identity. It's me. I don't want to lose myself, because what I am here and what I think I am is what's more important than the marriage in itself, the usness, and that usness as it relates back again to this higher power that's going to actually be the reference point.
Well, look, in the defense of the question, part of the issue is also that people do get married later on. So when you've lived so long, well, not people do get married. I don't know that that's statistically accurate. I'm just talking about the people who are getting married later on. Let's say you're not in your early 20s, okay? So you're already in your 30s. You've had a good amount of adult life as an individual, focused on only yourself, focusing on optimizing yourself, we use that word optimization a lot. If you're going to, at that point, connect with someone else and decide to have this successful relationship, it's because you value the idea of getting lost in each other. You have to really think about that for yourself. And to your point, if you can't recognize the value of the unity with this assumption of bringing God and spirituality and sanctity into the union, then you've already made the decision to not have a successful marriage.
That's what I'm getting at. And I think that in this day and age of, again, personal identity, having a sense of pride in all of that personalness, do you, man, you got to do you, all of these things. And it's even we're Generation X. This didn't just start, but it has culminated for sure in these younger generations of making it all about yourself. And
Right.
it just takes away, and then that becomes the primary focus versus being able to then, I don't even know how you're even supposed to evolve into letting yourself go into becoming an us. You and I have focused on, it's literally like an entity, this us thing that we say. I mean, it's like a being, and that being inevitably, as we've learned over time, I think, is with God, and
gets prioritized.
it just gets prioritized. It has to.
So with that in mind, when a person is thinking about their identity, this what am I? I'm a female. I'm a physician. I'm American. I'm an athlete. What are the things that define you? You have to think. Now I'm also a single person who wants a mate. And if you say I'm a single person who wants a mate, which I think is the majority of people, we talked about this in the past. I mean, there's a very primitive instinct for humans to couple up, right? So if you're a single person
Yeah,
who
whether they
wants a
marry
mate,
or not, at least they cohabitate.
couple up,
Etc.
yep,
Correct.
and have commitment, have
Yes.
monogamy. So if you know that you want to couple up, then you have to think to yourself, well, then what part of my identity as I see it now is being sacrificed with a negative, like this, a negative emotion? I'm sacrificing this for the sake of another. That's probably what needs to be assessed. I don't think there's any part of you that gets sacrificed for the sake of another. I think there are limitations to how much time a person has in their life and therefore how much effort they have.
I think that's what it is. Again, if you can't do what you want, how you want to do it, which is, this is what everyone's been sort of sold. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want to do it. Then everything feels like a sacrifice. If I can't do what I want when I want to do it, it's a perception of sacrifice.
But it's baloney, because those people are also saying, I want a partner.
Right.
So this is what I'm saying. I don't think that the question is wrong. I think they don't actually understand what they're asking. I think perhaps what she was asking that listeners are interested in is this idea of, how do you succeed in a relationship while still succeeding as an individual? That's what I think they want to know, which is not the same thing as how do you not lose yourself in a relationship? I would say, to succeed as an individual and in a relationship, you must lose yourself.
Yes, and make sure that he's on your team and she's on your team,
right.
and it's a team effort. Look, biblically speaking here, I mean, it is a reference to one flesh.
Right.
That's what that means. And flesh doesn't just mean body. It's talking about your entire purpose, a higher purpose. There is a joined understanding towards purpose with a capital P. That's what that means to be truly, a union.
Right.
And that's maybe not how they're always thinking about it.
Well, again, I think there's some confusion there, because how does one define success for themselves? When you think about it, okay, what are my goals? I'm going to go through college. In this case, I'm going to go through college. I'm going to go through med school. I'm going to become a physician. I'm going to join a successful practice. I'm going to become a successful physician. I'm going to feel self-actualized in the service of others. But there's other aspects of yourself that need to be serviced. Well, I would like to be a mom, perhaps. I would like to be a wife. I would like to be a mate. I'd like to support someone else in their success. If you're asking all of those questions honestly of yourself, then you're able to say, well, what does it take for those things to also be true? I'm your biggest fan, and you're my biggest fan. And we're constantly realigning our goals. What do we want to achieve? I know when I was 30 and opened my practice and I was not married and I didn't have kids, I wanted to have practices all over the world. Then that shifted, not because I stopped valuing myself or my professional growth. It shifted because I had a bigger value that came into place, which was my husband and my children, right? So I think that that's probably the question. The question is, how do you define personal success for the long run? And are you allowing yourself to reevaluate those goals as you proceed?
You know, I think about this. She's again. This is like not just who asked the question,
Mhm.
Dr. McMahon, but others, young women, or you know, anyone of that age asking this question. So I feel like I'm wanting to answer it, like a seasoned guy,
Sure, yeah. Well, that's what they're asking.
almost as a father to say, what would I say to my own kids, my own daughters? And I believe it is, I'm trying to summarize my own thoughts about how I would just answer the whole thing. And it does come back to, have a connection with God, make sure God has a central place in your life. And so therefore, inevitably in your relationship, that there is a shared commonality there. That's what I would say. It's just God, however somebody wants to define that. But I think that that's a big, big part of it, because then it becomes more about a higher purpose, because union like that should be about a higher purpose. Make sure you have for guys particularly, make sure you have a woman who's on your team, because a lot of times that just isn't the case. They want to have their own driven, separate purpose outside of what that purpose should be for a man. We talked about this also from a biblical standpoint, that the woman biblically is called helper. They completely incorrectly say that that's some kind of subservient approach, even though, and I think the word is a shai, which is a Hebrew word that means helper, and it is only God that refers to himself in that same word that is used when it's referenced for women. And how that, this is not it is so unbelievably untrue. And
Okay.
it creates something that's just really special. So I feel very passionate about that, to make sure I'm saying that. I feel that that part needs to be said. And I think you're doing a really good job, as you often do, of keeping in mind what it is that they're actually really trying to say and ask.
Okay. So then I'm curious from your perspective, um, this idea of guys, make sure you find a woman that's a fan of you. Then what would you say to your daughters or to these young women that are looking for the advice of, okay, I want to make sure that I'm finding a male mate that I can be in support of, but I also have all these other things that I want to do. So what would be your comment or advice about that?
Yeah, I think it depends on what they're wanting. What does that mean? What things do you want to do? Is that really what you are valuing the most in the long run? And if it is, then that's the thing. If it is having that sense of security through a really good union because she picked the best possible guy, and she's on his team, and this guy's going places, either is or in process of going someplace, then they have to make that decision on weighing out the value of that. Um, but what you and I have discussed many times, and this is what we've seen, and this is what a lot of the research sort of plays out, that in the end, women who focus on career and get into their 30s, and they're knocking on the door of what is going to be a biological infertility, and then they can't necessarily have children, they can't necessarily have that self-fulfilling type of union and growth of family, that they're not satisfied in so many cases. Not always, but more cases than not.
It's difficult because there's, that part of me, I guess, that feels like I want to find fault in what you're saying, but I just don't. I don't from my own personal path, and I don't from all the patients that I've had. I think it's very true that women who have professional goals, and whatever they are, it doesn't necessarily mean higher education, just something for their career, let's say career goals. They need to be thinking to themselves, do I have career goals, and are those career goals compatible with my goals to be a mom or my goals to be a wife? And if they're not, then shape it that way. Then shape it that way, because I promise you, it is a lot easier for the man to be out and about working and for the woman to take charge of the children and the home. And I know that that sounds very old-fashioned, I guess, perhaps even controversial. And I think there's the problem. I think it's unfair for women to feel that they are giving up on their effort, that they are giving up on their personal investment when they put their career aside to focus on home and family. And I promise you that it's not, because if you know you want children, that time is very limited and very valuable. So
it is biologically finite.
It is finite, whereas really one's career is not. I mean, it just isn't. Can you do both things at the same time? Absolutely. In fact, I think that's where women are probably luckier than men.
Best multitaskers on the planet.
Just shape it the way you want it to look, and then make it true. Look at what we have done. I had said, I'm working 60, 70, 80 hours a week until I have kids, and then I'm lowering the amount that I'm working because I want to be with my children. I still maintain our practice. I still maintain our other businesses. I still maintain my relationship with you. I still maintain my own health and wellness.
The podcast.
I still maintain our podcast. So to answer the question, I think for women out there that are wondering, how do you have it all? You have it all by being very clear on what having it all really means. Do not buy into the notion that you have to give up on yourself when you decide to focus on a mate and on children. If you think of it that way, it's always going to feel like you cheated yourself. So have a clear trajectory in mind.
I would say too, just here in closing, that I would also say, and I've just been so happy and blessed that you and I have such an amazing relationship, I believe, and as a guidepost and an example for our daughters.
Yeah.
And so
for these people, I mean,
hopefully anybody listening.
Well, that's why they ask. They're asking, how do we make it work?
Right.
And we make it work by having a lot of discussion and by ironically, having a strong sense of self. Ironically. So maybe they're right. Have a clearer sense of what your identity is. Maybe that's it.
Maybe that is it. It's interesting. It kind of full circle, because I feel like you very much have a strong sense of self, and as do I, but we bring that together. I'm always communicating with you. You're always communicating with me about what's on the inside, what's going on, what do we want, need, and desire, and how do we meld that together into that purpose with a capital P.
And not every woman wants to invest in their children that way. Not every woman wants that. And that's also potentially okay if it's what's good for you and your mate. Otherwise, the conflict will come no matter what, and it'll come after the kids. And that's just not what you want. That's not what anybody wants. So if you are not looking for the value of investing in your children's time while they're little, if that's a decision that you're making, you want to have that clear discussion with your partner. Because I guess that's possible as well. I have found more women to be dissatisfied when they put their kids aside. I really have. And I'm talking about some very successful, industrious, productive women. So many. So that would be my answer to the young women out there. Like, lose yourself in the relationship. That's my number one advice. If the relationship is not something you can get lost in, then perhaps it's not the right relationship.
No, it's not safe then.
It's not safe.
Women will let go when they are safe.
That's right.
And so it's up to find the right guy that knows how to make her feel safe.
Choose wisely, get lost in each other, enjoy it, and then be very clear on the values that are most true to your core. Communicate about them in the beginning, and then have constant points of communication along the way.
Well said. I love you.
I love you too.
Are you liking what you're hearing? Do you want to hear more?
Are you loving this great content, and do you want to ask us a question?
Please like, subscribe, and comment.
You can find all of our links on our social media, featured articles, basically everything we cover at Linktree at Longevity Protocol Pod.
And if you want to understand and hear a little bit more about our personal lives, follow us on Instagram at The Sex Docs.
Here's where you can comment and ask questions that we will directly answer in our videos.
Be sure to subscribe to our Substack. This is where we get far more information for you, protocols on longevity and health, and definitely the notes for today's episode.
And finally, if you're ready to make a change, a real change in your own life, feel free to check us out at our private practice at hormone-zone.com.